saying that in certain situations, like if you get in bed with organized crime and they help you in your career, like there was always insinuations that Frank Sinatra was involved in the mob.
The night Frank Sinatra married Ava Gardner in November 1951, he had already sacrificed nearly everything to be with her. He had divorced Nancy Barbato, his childhood sweetheart, the mother of his 3 children, and the woman who had stood beside him long before fame arrived. His affair with Ava had dominated headlines for 2 years, and America turned against him. Fans sent hate mail, records stopped selling, and the Catholic Church condemned his behavior. The same Bobby Soxers who once screamed his name now saw Ava as a homewrecker and Sinatra as finished. And professionally, he nearly was.
Good evening. We, the unwilling, led by the unknowing, are doing the impossible for the ungrateful.
By 1952, Sinatra struggled to find recording contracts, film roles, or even reliable nightclub work. His finances collapsed so badly that he reportedly charged gifts for Ava to her own account. Yet the marriage he had risked everything for quickly became explosive. Frank and Ava loved each other intensely, but their arguments could be just as fierce. There were public confrontations, screaming matches, jealousy, threats, and, according to biographers, moments when Sinatra became dangerously overwhelmed by the relationship. That vulnerability stood in sharp contrast to the image the world would later remember. The confident Rat Pack star who seemed completely untouchable. But beneath that swagger was a deep fear of loneliness that stretched back to his earliest days. Frank Sinatra nearly died before taking his first breath. Born December 12, 1915 in Hoboken, New Jersey, Sinatra entered the world during a traumatic delivery. He was an unusually large baby, and doctors used forceps to deliver him, leaving permanent scars on his face. When he emerged, he was blue, silent, and apparently lifeless. Believing the baby had died, the doctor placed him aside and focused on saving his hemorrhaging mother.
It's real nice having you with us for the holidays.
I couldn't think of any better place to be.
Oh, hey, how about an eggnog?
Yet Sinatra survived. That difficult beginning would become the opening chapter of a life filled with enormous success, emotional extremes, and a relentless need for companionship. He eventually married 4 women: Nancy Barbato, Ava Gardner, Mia Farrow, and Barbara Marx. Each experienced a different version of Frank Sinatra. And together, their marriages reveal something his public image often concealed: a man who could command an entire room, yet spent much of his life desperately trying not to face it alone. Frank Sinatra's grandmother was the person who saved his life. She picked up the motionless newborn, carried him to the sink, ran cold water over him, and slapped him until his lungs finally responded. Frank Sinatra's first sound was a scream from a baby doctors had already believed was dead. The traumatic delivery left permanent scars along the left side of his face and damaged his eardrum, an injury that would later help keep him out of military service.
We had done so much for so long with so little. We are now qualified to do anything with nothing.
Growing up in Hoboken, other boys mocked those scars and called him Scarface. Sinatra became so self-conscious that he eventually preferred being photographed from his right side, a habit that followed him throughout his career. His childhood home was dominated by one powerful figure, his mother, Natalina, known to everyone as Dolly. Frank's father, Marty, had worked as a boxer before becoming a firefighter. He was quiet and gentle, while Dolly was almost his complete opposite. She was a midwife, politically connected Democratic ward organizer, and a formidable presence throughout Hoboken.
First, the sounds that I have to make, will it be there?
She became known for her ability to organize voters and influence local politics. She also reportedly performed illegal abortions, work that eventually contributed to a criminal record. Dolly loved her only son, but she was constantly busy. Between politics, work, and community responsibilities, Frank was frequently left with relatives and neighbors. The boy who had nearly died at birth now spent much of his childhood feeling alone. Biographers would later connect those early experiences to one of Sinatra's strongest emotional needs, his difficulty with solitude. As an adult, he constantly surrounded himself with friends, associates, and eventually the famous entourage that became part of his image. He stayed awake late into the night and rarely seemed comfortable being completely alone. Frank Sinatra had no formal vocal training. What he possessed instead was instinct, an extraordinary ability to shape a lyric, stretch a note, and make every song feel like a private confession. He sang anywhere he could. Dolly eventually supported his ambition and used her connections to help secure bookings.
Now listen, not too much, because I don't want to get, I don't want to drive home and get picked up for driving with too much cinnamon, you know. Influence of cinnamon or something.
Frank joined Harry James's band and later Tommy Dorsey's, where he developed the remarkable breath control and smooth phrasing that would become signatures of his voice. Then, in 1943, Sinatra went solo, and America had never seen anything like what followed. Teenage girls known as Bobby Soxers screamed, fainted, and crowded theaters just to see him. The skinny kid from Hoboken who once hid his scars from cameras suddenly became one of America's biggest stars. But before all that, there was Nancy Barbato. Frank met Nancy around 1934 at the Jersey Shore. She was 17, he was 19, and Sinatra was still an unknown young singer with enormous ambitions and almost no money. Nancy loved him before the fame. They married on February 4th, 1939. Frank worked as a singing waiter while Nancy worked as a secretary, helping support them as her husband chased a dream few people could have imagined becoming reality. She gave Sinatra something he had rarely experienced growing up: stability. Then everything changed. By the early 1940s, Sinatra wasn't simply successful.
I said, even just going out and looking at the audience, I was terrified for about 4 seconds, and then it goes away.
How do you explain that?
I don't know. I can't explain.
You've always had that?
Always had it.
He had become a national phenomenon. The couple moved to Los Angeles, Frank entered Hollywood, and their modest life in New Jersey disappeared beneath money, fame, screaming fans, and endless temptation. Sinatra embraced that temptation. His affairs weren't isolated mistakes. Womanizing became a recurring part of his marriage. The man who feared loneliness and constantly craved attention now had countless women willing to give it to him. Nancy knew what was happening. At first, she responded as many wives of famous men were expected to in that era. She remained quiet, protected the family, and looked the other way. Nancy had 3 children with Frank: Nancy Jr., Frank Jr., and Tina. And despite his betrayals, she remained devoted to the family they had built. When questioned about her husband's affairs, she reportedly explained that she had something too precious to simply throw away. For years, Nancy tolerated the infidelity. But Ava Gardner was different. Sinatra later claimed he first noticed Ava on a 1944 magazine cover and immediately told a friend that someday he would marry her. At the time, Frank was already married with children. Then they actually met. By 1949, Ava was one of Hollywood's most captivating rising stars. Born in rural North Carolina, she had been transformed by MGM into a glamorous screen siren. Behind that image, however, was a fiercely independent and emotionally complicated woman who could match Sinatra's intensity.
You know, and you would imagine that, like, Frank Sinatra would probably be a terrible guy to piss off.
Their attraction became explosive. Unfortunately for Frank, it arrived just as his career was beginning to weaken. The Bobby Soxer phenomenon was fading, musical tastes were changing, and concerts weren't selling like they once had. Sinatra was increasingly insecure about losing everything he had built. Then Ava became the center of his world. His publicist reportedly warned him that openly pursuing a Hollywood star while married with 3 children could destroy his reputation. Frank ignored the warning. On Valentine's Day 1950, he asked Nancy for a divorce. After supporting him before fame, raising their children, creating a stable home, and tolerating years of affairs, Nancy was now being asked to surrender the marriage entirely.
I
Harry
think
James, when you stood up to sing to Harry James?
Every always had it all the time. Will you remember the lyrics? Is your tie right? Will you use your hands right?
At first, she refused. But once Frank's relationship with Ava became public, the scandal exploded. The public reaction was vicious. Ava was branded a home wrecker and accused of destroying Sinatra's family. Hate mail poured in, with strangers attacking her for becoming involved with a married father. Yet there was an uncomfortable contradiction. Ava's career largely survived. Hollywood had already marketed her as a dangerous, seductive femme fatale. In some ways, the scandal reinforced the image audiences associated with her. For Sinatra, the consequences were very different. His entire appeal had been built partly around the image of the romantic young singer adored by American women. Now those same fans saw a husband abandoning the loyal wife who had supported him before he became famous.
At midnight, you go up on the roof, and you climb down the chimney and come in through the fireplace and surprise everybody.
What's a surprise? I do that every night.
For Ava Gardner, the scandal only strengthened the dangerous image Hollywood had already created around her. For Frank Sinatra, it was devastating. His records stopped selling. Radio stations pulled his music, fans turned against him, and the Catholic Church condemned his behavior. His recording and film opportunities disappeared, and nightclubs that once competed to book him stopped calling. Within 2 years, one of America's biggest entertainers had become nearly unemployable. By 1952, Sinatra was broke. His financial situation became so desperate that when he wanted to buy Ava a gift, he reportedly had to charge it to her account.
Because he probably can contact some people, and you probably can disappear.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Ava's career was thriving while Frank's collapsed, and she even tried using her MGM influence to help him find work. Meanwhile, Nancy continued refusing to grant him a divorce. She had spent years protecting their marriage, but Frank was now openly committed to Ava. Eventually, Nancy accepted that the relationship she had fought to preserve was over. Their divorce became final on October 31st, 1951. 7 days later, on November 7th, Frank Sinatra married Ava Gardner. After years of obsession, Sinatra finally had the woman he had once seen on a magazine cover and declared he would marry. But getting Ava didn't bring the peace he expected. Frank had convinced himself that possessing this one woman would somehow quiet the loneliness and insecurity he had carried since childhood. Instead, he had chosen someone whose personality challenged everything he emotionally needed. Nancy had offered stability and devotion. Ava offered fire. She was fiercely independent, successful in her own right, and unwilling to build her entire life around Sinatra. Those qualities were exactly what made her irresistible to him, but they also drove his jealousy and insecurity. Frank needed reassurance and constant companionship. Ava refused to be possessed. It was an explosive combination. Sinatra had spent 2 years destroying almost everything around him to reach their wedding day. His marriage to Nancy was gone. His family had been fractured. His reputation was damaged. His career was collapsing, and his finances were disappearing. Within weeks, Frank Sinatra's marriage to Ava Gardner became a war. Their relationship would later be remembered as one of Hollywood's great romances, but the same intensity that brought them together also made their marriage destructive. The arguments began almost immediately. They fought publicly, screamed at each other in nightclubs, drank heavily, and deliberately provoked each other's deepest insecurities. Both were jealous, possessive, and suspicious. One notorious incident unfolded after an argument at New York's Copacabana. Furious with Frank, Ava reportedly contacted her ex-husband Artie Shaw and went to see him, knowing exactly how badly it would affect Sinatra. Frank's reaction revealed how emotionally consumed he had become. Later that night, he reportedly called Ava from another room and threatened to take his own life. Biographers have described other serious incidents during their relationship, showing just how unstable Sinatra had become. The confident public image was hiding a man falling apart. Frank wanted Ava desperately, but he also wanted to control her. Ava refused to be controlled. Her career was thriving while his was collapsing, intensifying his jealousy and insecurity. She resented his possessiveness. He resented her independence. Both were reportedly unfaithful, and their marriage became increasingly impossible to sustain. There was private pain as well. During their relationship, Gardner became pregnant and chose to have abortions, later explaining that their marriage was far too unstable to raise children. Meanwhile, Sinatra's career remained near rock bottom. Then Ava helped create the opportunity that would change everything. In 1953, Frank desperately wanted the role of Angelo Maggio in the wartime drama From Here to Eternity. It was a serious, dramatic part that could finally prove he was more than a fading singer. Hollywood wasn't interested. Sinatra was considered washed up, surrounded by scandal, and no longer commercially valuable. But Ava still had influence. Believing Frank was right for the role, she reportedly used her Hollywood connections to push for him to receive serious consideration. Sinatra finally got his chance. And what happened next wouldn't simply revive his career. It would transform Frank Sinatra from a fallen celebrity into something almost nobody believed he could become again, a major Hollywood star. Whatever Ava Gardner said behind the scenes, Sinatra got his screen test, and then the role. Over the years, rumors claimed organized crime helped Frank secure his part in From Here to Eternity, eventually inspiring elements of The Godfather. But the reality was far less dramatic. Ava's influence and Sinatra's determination helped give him the opportunity he desperately needed. When From Here to Eternity arrived in 1953, everything changed. Sinatra's performance as Angelo Maggio was a triumph. He won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor, and almost overnight, the supposedly washed-up singer became a respected dramatic actor. His comeback exploded from there. He rebuilt his recording career, signed with Capitol Records, and began an extraordinary run of albums that helped transform him into the Sinatra remembered today, the chairman of the board and one of America's defining entertainers. His career had survived. His marriage hadn't. Frank and Ava separated in 1953, the same year his comeback became unstoppable. Their divorce wasn't finalized until 1957, but their life together was effectively finished. Yet strangely, their love never completely disappeared. They remained connected for decades after the divorce. Ava never remarried, and when her health declined later in life, Sinatra reportedly remained concerned about her and offered financial help. She died in 1990. Their marriage had been jealous, volatile, and impossible to sustain, yet neither seemed able to completely erase what they had shared. For Sinatra, life after Ava brought even greater fame. The late 1950s and early 1960s became the era of the Sinatra most people remember. The Rat Pack, Las Vegas, Dean Martin, Sammy Davis Jr., tuxedos, cocktails, and effortless cool. Frank seemed to possess everything: money, power, women, friends, fame. But underneath the swagger, the old loneliness remained. Sinatra continued surrounding himself with people, staying awake deep into the night and keeping friends and associates close. The man who appeared completely independent seemed deeply uncomfortable with solitude. He dated some of the world's most famous women, but nothing seemed to replace what he had experienced with Ava. At the height of his power, Frank Sinatra could walk into almost any room in America and immediately become its center. Then, in the mid-1960s, Frank Sinatra met Mia Farrow, and Hollywood couldn't believe it. Mia was only 20 when they met. Sinatra was 50. She was a rising young actress from a famous Hollywood family. while Frank was already one of the most powerful entertainers in America. The nearly 30-year age difference immediately caused controversy. Sinatra's daughter Nancy was roughly Mia's age, and even Frank's friends struggled to understand the relationship. Ava Gardner reportedly mocked the romance with one of her famously cutting remarks, joking about Mia's youthful, boyish appearance. But Sinatra seemed captivated. After the explosive relationship he'd experienced with Ava, Mia offered something completely different. She was younger, gentler, and initially seemed willing to build her world around him. They married in July 1966. Frank was 50, Mia was 21. But the fundamental problem soon returned. Mia didn't want her entire identity to become Mrs. Frank Sinatra. She wanted an acting career of her own. Frank expected his wife to travel with him, accommodate his schedule, and remain available whenever he wanted her. Mia initially tried, but increasingly wanted independence. Then came the opportunity that changed everything. In 1967, Mia was offered the lead role in Roman Polanski's Rosemary's Baby. For a young actress, it was an enormous opportunity. For Sinatra, it meant months of filming during which his wife would be working on someone else's schedule and building a career completely separate from his. He reportedly wanted Mia to abandon the project and appear alongside him in one of his own films instead. Mia refused. She chose Rosemary's Baby. And that decision exposed the same conflict that had haunted Sinatra's previous relationships. Frank wanted complete devotion. The women he loved wanted lives of their own. This time, Sinatra reacted brutally. While Mia was working on the film that would transform her career, divorce papers were delivered to her on the set. Their strange and controversial marriage was effectively finished. And the irony was impossible to miss. The movie Sinatra reportedly wanted Mia to abandon became the film that turned her into a major Hollywood star. Once again, Frank Sinatra had fallen for an independent woman, and once again, he couldn't accept what happened when she chose herself. Frank Sinatra ended his marriage to Mia Farrow coldly. While Mia was filming Rosemary's Baby, a lawyer arrived on set and served her with divorce papers in front of the cast and crew. She was only 23, suddenly receiving the end of her marriage while trying to work. Their marriage had lasted barely 2 years. Later, Mia spoke about the breakup without much bitterness. She admitted she had been extremely young and believed their enormous age difference contributed to the failure. But there was also a familiar conflict. Sinatra wanted a wife who would make him the center of her life. Mia wanted an identity and career of her own. When she chose Rosemary's Baby over the life Frank imagined for them, their marriage collapsed. Remarkably, the divorce didn't completely destroy their relationship. Frank and Mia remained close for decades. He continued to support her through difficult periods in her later life. Years afterward, speculation even emerged that Sinatra might have been the biological father of Mia's son, Ronan Farrow, though that has never been established as fact. What mattered was that their connection survived. It was becoming a strange pattern in Sinatra's life. Nancy, Ava, and Mia all divorced him, yet none completely disappeared from his world. By the early 1970s, Sinatra was approaching 60. 3 marriages had failed. Nancy had given him stability, but he betrayed her. Ava had matched his intensity, but together they nearly destroyed each other. Mia had offered something gentler, but their enormous age difference and conflicting expectations eventually pulled them apart. Through it all, Sinatra remained one of America's biggest entertainers, yet the loneliness never seemed to disappear. Then he met Barbara Marx. Barbara was a former model and showgirl, elegant, sophisticated, and much closer to Sinatra's own generation. She was married to Zeppo Marx, one of the Marx brothers, and moved within the same wealthy social circles as Frank. She would eventually become Sinatra's 4th wife. But Barbara would be different. After decades of chasing women who either gave him too much or refused to give up themselves, Frank Sinatra was entering the final chapter of his romantic life. Barbara Marx was different from every woman Frank Sinatra had married before. She wasn't a young actress like Mia, a fiery Hollywood star like Ava, or the hometown sweetheart Nancy had been. Barbara was mature, sophisticated, and close to Sinatra's own age. A former Las Vegas showgirl and model, she had already lived among wealthy and famous people for years. She understood exactly who Frank Sinatra was. The two met through the social circles of Rancho Mirage, where Barbara lived with her husband, Zeppo Marx, who was also Sinatra's neighbor and friend. Barbara eventually left Marx, and after several years together, she married Sinatra on July 11, 1976. Frank was 60. Their wedding included famous guests such as Ronald Reagan and Sammy Davis Jr., and this time, Sinatra's marriage lasted. Barbara didn't magically change him. Frank remained moody, demanding, and capable of the temper that had followed him throughout his life. But Barbara knew how to live with him. She offered stability, companionship, and most importantly, constant presence. She built her life around their marriage and charitable work, including a children's center supported by Sinatra's benefit performances. For perhaps the first time, Frank had a relationship that wasn't constantly competing with another powerful career. As the years passed, Sinatra also seemed to make peace with parts of his past. He remained connected to Nancy Barbato, the woman who had loved him before fame. Nancy never remarried and continued maintaining strong ties with their 3 children. There were even stories that later in life, Sinatra sometimes looked back toward Nancy, the woman who had known him before the fame, the scandals, and the legend. In the end, Frank Sinatra seemed to understand just how much that first love had meant. Whether Sinatra ever seriously considered returning to Nancy or not, their bond never completely disappeared. When Nancy was later asked why she never remarried, her reported answer was simple: after Sinatra? She had loved Frank before fame, endured his betrayals, lost him to Ava Gardner, and raised their 3 children. Yet even decades later, no other man seemed capable of replacing him. Nancy died in 2018 at the remarkable age of 101. The pattern continued with the other women in Sinatra's life. He remained connected to Ava Gardner until her death in 1990, despite the destructive marriage they had shared. Mia Farrow also remained part of his life long after their divorce. Then there was Barbara. Frank Sinatra died on May 14, 1998 at 82, with Barbara still his wife. After 3 failed marriages, she had stayed beside him for more than 2 decades. And perhaps that is the real story behind Frank Sinatra's 4 marriages. He became one of the most celebrated entertainers who ever lived. He had fame, money, power, women, and millions of fans who adored him. Yet beneath the chairman of the board was still the lonely boy from Hoboken searching for something fame could never provide. Nancy gave him stability. Ava gave him passion. Mia gave him youth and another chance at love. Barbara gave him something simpler. She stayed, and after spending most of his life surrounded by people while fearing the moment they might leave, perhaps that was what Frank Sinatra had been searching for all along. If you enjoyed this story, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and comment below. Which of Sinatra's 4 marriages surprised you the most? Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.